Okay, in this video, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the AI lessons we can learn from the calculators and their introduction to maths. Because I heard this at a talk and I found it really interesting. So to start with, let's remind ourselves that this is a new tool, AI, but this is a really old debate. So if we look back at the introduction of the calculators in the 1980s in education and look at what that did on maths, I think there's a fair parallel distinction we can make between what's happening there and what is happening today with AI and all other subjects. So in the 80s, maths was mainly manual. So it used things like slide rules and log tables. I'm sure some people watching this videos, this will ring a bell. I was born in 85, so I'm not going to pretend I experienced all of this, but from talking to people and doing my research, it seems like lessons were really focused on procedural fluency. So there's a lot of memorizing times tables and things like that. Now, there is a question on what impact the calculator had. So when it first came out, the calculator was met with a lot of excitement, but also a lot of skepticism. Now, this is probably, you're seeing the parallels already with the introduction of AI in education now. There's some people very excited, but some people very, very critical, very anti-AI. And the big question is, as educators, is the same as in the 80s. Would students lose skills or gain new ones? So how they changed teaching is the introduction of new topics. So suddenly things like data handling, stats and trig were more accessible. It's not that they weren't done before, it's that they were more accessible for everybody to do at a higher level because the calculator was like your assistant. So even if you were struggling with some of the maths, you might be able to engage in some of that higher level topics because the calculator was there to help. So the idea was when the calculators came in, there was less time on the procedural stuff and there was more time on thinking, was the idea. It opened the door to like I say, some of these topics that were hard to teach more widely before the calculator. And then the curriculum eventually evolved. So by the 90s, calculator use was expected in secondary exams. So suddenly you started, and this is what my memory comes back to, this idea of calculator papers and non-calculator papers and almost two different types of maths. And the idea was it was more time spent on problem solving. And students were exploring more different areas of maths and less repeating of the same maths over and over. So this all sounds very positive, but did it weaken their mathematical skills? Are students today worse at maths than students of the 70s, for example? So a lot of people would say yes, but I think there's a lot of debate and not a lot of proof on this matter, in my opinion. But some skills saw a lot less practice in this new world of calculator maths, things like timetables. And then what happened is the reflection piece. So once something changes, after a few years, you start, well, it's actually in education, it's usually after about a decade that you start questioning the real impact of the change you've made. And then what happened in maths is the policy swung back. So the policy swings back to more mental maths, more maths fundamentals and the importance of those for the life as students go on. Exams adapt, like I said, the introduction of the calculator and the non-calculator papers and the focus on the mental maths. And the verdicts that with the calculator, it didn't kill maths. The calculator didn't kill maths. The concerns were completely valid. The debate was important. Less time on mental maths and policies, they had to be changed because of the importance of that. But the right technology, guided by clear policies, expertise, they can become a tool for deeper learning, not a replacement for thinking. So the calculator has changed what we value in the subject. I think some people would argue both sides of this coin. Has it been damaging? Are students worse at maths now than they used to be? I don't have answers to these questions, but I think the clear thing is that maths is still taught. Maths is still taught, like English is still going to be taught, like lots of the things where AI is really going to impact the world. The subjects aren't going anywhere. I think there are a few subjects at risk, probably, but it depends on the school. I think a lot of the core subjects will be fine. I think it should also be quite an exciting time for some of the subjects that have been probably not been seen in the best light over the last 10, 20, 30 years. You know, the subjects where they fell, things like art, for example, where in some schools, you know, some of the creative subjects are seen more as a luxury because they're not treated as core. I think some of these subjects the importance of these subjects could grow and grow and grow with the introduction of AI. So I feel like we're in this boat now. You know, history is repeating itself. It was the calculator, it's now AI. AI is potentially going to do for so many subjects what the calculator did for maths. You know, it's a way of getting to the result, the end result, much, much quicker. But potentially we need to be careful that students aren't getting the answer and not knowing how it was generated in the first place. You know, there's no point in a student getting an answer on a calculator and not really understanding how they got there. It's the same thing for AI. So, you know, the essential questions for us is not should they use it, but what skills are now more important than they were before AI? How do we change our teaching and assessments to focus on these skills? And the big one is, what does deeper learning look like? In the age of AI, what does that mean? And these are reflection points we'll cover over coming videos and things like that. And I spend a lot of time discussing these sort of things with people, and it's really interesting. But it is going to change what's worth teaching. Now, I know that's an awkward subject, and I think it's going to take a lot of time, but we've got to have you know, one of the most powerful pieces of technology ever, or the most powerful piece of technology ever, has been developed in our lifetime, and it's going to change the world, and it's going to change education. We've got to rethink assessment and expectations, because that's fundamentally broken, and there's some argument about whether it was broken before AI, and it definitely is now. And AI could potentially do for essay writing, for summarising, for lots and lots of subjects, it could impact them as much, if not more, than the calculator did to maths. So I think this is a very short video, but I think it's quite interesting, because I think the parallels between the calculator and maths and AI and lots of other subjects are really clear to see. Thank you.